By the time my son's bride leaned over my shoulder and whispered, "Taste it," I already knew the wedding had stopped being a celebration and become a lesson in how quietly a mother could be erased. My name is Eleanor Bennett. I was 70 years old that spring, old enough to know that cruelty does not always arrive shouting. Sometimes it wears satin. Sometimes it smiles for photographs. Sometimes it calls you mom in front of strangers and treats you like furniture when no one important is watching. The reception was being held at the Magnolia House in Charleston, a white-column venue with wraparound porches, polished floors, and chandeliers that made every glass of champagne look expensive. I had spent the morning telling myself to be grateful. My only son, Michael, was getting married. I had ironed my champagne-colored dress twice, pinned my late husband's pearl brooch near my collar, and practiced smiling in the mirror until the lines around my mouth looked softer. Robert would have loved to see Michael in a tuxedo. He would have stood beside me, one hand at the small of my back, steadying me the way he always did when family moments became too much. But Robert had been gone 4 years, and I came alone. At dinner, I was seated near the end of a long table, 2 chairs away from a cousin Michael barely spoke to and far enough from the head table that I had to lean forward to see my son's face. Madison, my new daughter-in-law, looked beautiful in her second dress, a fitted ivory gown with tiny buttons down the back and a smile that never quite reached her eyes when they landed on me. She floated from table to table, accepting compliments, touching shoulders, laughing softly. When she reached me, she rested one hand on the back of my chair like we were close. "Eleanor," she said, "not Mom, not Mrs. Bennett, just Eleanor, bright and sharp as a pin. You barely touched your dinner." I looked down at the plate in front of me. Roast chicken, green beans, and a neat scoop of mashed potatoes I had not wanted but had taken because the server looked tired. "It's lovely," I said. "Everything is lovely." She tilted her head. A few bridesmaids gathered behind her, smiling, as if something amusing were about to happen. "You always have opinions about food," Madison said. "The rehearsal dinner, the cake tasting, the menu cards. I thought you should be the judge." Her fingers tightened lightly on my shoulder. Not enough to make a scene, just enough for me to understand. Then, in one quick, humiliating motion, she pushed my face down toward the plate until the cold potatoes smeared across my cheek and nose. The table went silent. Someone gasped. Someone else laughed once, then covered it with a cough. I heard silverware stop against china. The band kept playing in the corner, soft and cheerful, as if nothing in the room had changed. Madison bent close, her perfume sweet and heavy. "Taste it," she whispered. I did not scream. I did not jump up. I lifted my head slowly, mashed potatoes clinging to my skin, my pearl brooch still shining under the chandelier. Across the room, Michael stood frozen with a glass in his hand. My son saw me. My only child saw his mother sitting there, humiliated in front of 180 guests. For 1 second, I thought he would come to me. Then his eyes moved to Madison, and he stayed where he was. That was the moment something inside me became very still. Before that stillness settled over me, I had spent the entire morning trying to believe the day would heal things. I woke before sunrise in my small brick house on Queen Street, the one Robert and I bought when Michael was still losing baby teeth and leaving toy trucks under the sofa. The room was quiet in the way a widow's house becomes quiet. Not peaceful exactly, just careful. I made coffee, sliced half a grapefruit, and sat at the kitchen table with the wedding invitation beside my plate. Thick cream paper, gold lettering. Michael Bennett and Madison Caldwell invite you to celebrate their marriage. I ran my finger over my son's name and told myself this was still a blessing. My boy was getting married. That should have been enough. In the upstairs bedroom, I opened the garment bag and took out the dress I had chosen after 3 trips to the department store. Champagne-colored, knee-length, modest sleeves, nothing that would draw attention. Madison had made it clear for months that she did not want me to look too mother of the groom. I had not known what that meant, but I understood the warning underneath it. Be present, but not visible. Smile, but do not shine. So I picked something soft, something polite. Then I opened the little velvet box on my dresser and took out my mother's pearl brooch. Robert always said pearls were honest jewelry because they did not sparkle to beg for attention. They simply glowed. I pinned it near my collar and imagined him behind me in the mirror, straightening his tie, saying, "Ellie, you look like yourself." For a moment, I almost smiled without effort. I had also prepared a gift for Madison, wrapped in pale blue tissue paper and tucked into my purse. It was a pearl hair comb that had belonged to Robert's mother. 3 generations of Bennett women had worn it on their wedding day, though Madison had refused it for the ceremony when I offered weeks before. Too old-fashioned, she had said, laughing lightly, as if the word old could not possibly hurt me. Still, I brought it. I told myself she might change her mind. I told myself marriage softened people. When I arrived at the Magnolia house, the lawn was already busy with florists, photographers, and young women in satin robes moving like a flock of birds across the porch. White roses climbed over the archway. A string quartet warmed up near the garden fountain. Everything smelled like magnolia blossoms, hairspray, and fresh paint. I stood there holding my purse with both hands, feeling proud and strangely unnecessary. Michael saw me from across the walkway and waved, but he did not come over. Madison's mother hugged him first. Then her father clapped him on the back. I waited. I kept waiting until a wedding coordinator with a headset asked if I needed help finding the guest entrance. The coordinator was a young woman with a clipboard and a smile, trained to survive uncomfortable moments. She looked from my dress to my pearl brooch, then down at her list. "You must be Mrs. Bennett," she said. For half a second, I felt relieved. Then she added, "The family entrance is for the wedding party only, but I can walk you around too. The side doors." I almost corrected her. I was family. I was the mother of the groom. I had rocked Michael through fevers, packed his school lunches, driven him to baseball practice in summer heat, and sat beside his hospital bed when he broke his wrist at 12. But the girl was only doing what someone had told her, so I nodded and followed her along the brick path past the kitchen deliveries. Inside, the venue was beautiful enough to make embarrassment feel impolite. Tall mirrors, white flowers, gold chairs, tables set with folded napkins shaped like fans. I found the bridal suite door half open and heard laughter inside, bright and easy. Madison sat before a lighted mirror while 2 stylists adjusted her hair. Her mother stood behind her holding a glass of orange juice in a champagne flute. I stepped forward, touching the tissue-wrapped gift in my purse. "Madison," I said gently, "you look beautiful." The room quieted, not all at once, but in layers. Madison turned her head just enough to see me in the mirror. "Oh, Eleanor," she said, "we are actually keeping this room calm right now. Too many people make me anxious." Her mother did not look at me. One of the bridesmaids glanced at my brooch, then at my shoes, then away. I felt the little velvet box in my purse become heavier. "Of course," I said. "I only wanted to give you something before the ceremony." Madison smiled. It was a perfect smile for photographs. "Later, maybe. Today is moving so fast." I backed out before anyone had to ask me twice. In the hallway, Michael appeared from the groom's room, fixing one cufflink with his teeth pressed together the way Robert used to do when he was nervous. For one beautiful second, I saw my little boy inside the grown man. "Michael," I said. His face softened, then tightened again when he looked past me toward the bridal suite. "Mom, please do not start anything today." The words landed quietly. That made them worse. "Start anything?" I asked. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Madison has been stressed. Today is about her." I waited for him to add, "and about us," or "and about family," or "and I am glad you are here." He did not. He kissed my cheek quickly, leaving the smell of expensive cologne in the air, and walked away before I could hand him the small envelope I had written for him the night before. At the seating chart near the ballroom doors, I found my name printed as Mrs. Edward Bennett, as if I were only the shadow of my late husband. Nearby, a bridesmaid whispered, "Is that the mother who paid for the rehearsal dinner?" Another voice answered, "I think so. Madison said she likes to feel useful." I stood very still, reading that wrong name over and over, and for the first time that day, I stopped pretending the small things were accidental. I carried that wrong name with me through the ceremony like a stone in my shoe. Mrs. Edward Bennett. Not Eleanor. Not Michael's mother. Not the woman who had sat beside Robert through 38 years of mortgage payments, broken water heaters, school fundraisers, and Sunday dinners. Just an attachment to a man who was no longer alive to correct anyone. The garden ceremony was beautiful in the way expensive things are beautiful when enough people are paid to make them look effortless. White petals lined the aisle. A breeze moved through the live oaks. Madison walked toward Michael under a canopy of roses, and everyone turned to admire her. I did too. I wanted to feel generous. I wanted to remember that my son loved her, and that loving him meant finding room for the woman he had chosen. But when Madison reached the altar, her eyes moved past Michael for 1 second and found me. She smiled. Not warmly, not nervously. It was the same smile she had worn when she told the bridal suite that too many people made her anxious. A smile that closed doors without touching them. During the vows, I watched Michael's hands tremble. I remembered those same hands at 5 years old, sticky with melted popsicle, reaching for mine in the grocery store parking lot. I remembered him at 17, pretending not to cry when Robert taught him how to change a tire. I remembered the night after Robert's funeral when Michael sat at my kitchen table and said, "It is just us now, Mom." I had believed him. That was my mistake. After the ceremony, guests moved into the ballroom for dinner. The room glowed. Under chandeliers, all candlelight and polished silver. A jazz trio played near the bar. Servers carried trays of crab cakes, shrimp, and tiny biscuits with honey butter. Everything looked southern and graceful and carefully chosen. At my table, no one quite knew what to say to me, so they spoke around me. The cousin beside me asked whether I lived alone. A woman across the table said Charleston was getting too crowded. I folded my napkin in my lap and smiled when smiling was expected. Then Madison took the microphone. Her voice floated through the room, sweet as frosting. She thanked her parents first, then the wedding party, then everyone who helped make this day possible. Her gaze touched me for less than a heartbeat. "And of course, Eleanor," she said, with a little laugh that invited the room to join her. "She has always loved being useful." A few people chuckled because they thought they were supposed to. Michael looked down at his plate. I felt heat rise under my collar, but I kept my hands still. Madison continued, telling a story about the menu tasting, how I had asked whether the mashed potatoes would be served warm enough. It was true. I had asked quietly because Robert used to say cold potatoes could ruin a fine dinner. But Madison shaped the memory into something fussy, something small, something ridiculous. "So tonight," she said, "we made sure they were perfect for her." More laughter. Softer this time. Uneasy. I looked at the plate in front of me, at the neat white scoop beside the chicken. Suddenly I understood that I had not been placed at the edge of the family by accident. I had been placed where everyone could see me when Madison decided it was time. Madison handed the microphone back to the bandleader, then began moving through the room again, accepting compliments as if she had not just turned me into part of the evening's entertainment. I watched her come closer table by table. She stopped to touch an aunt's shoulder. She leaned down to kiss an older cousin on the cheek. She laughed with the bridesmaids near the bar. Everything she did looked graceful from a distance. That was Madison's gift. She could make a closed fist look like an open hand. When she reached my table, the cousin beside me straightened in his chair. The woman across from me lowered her eyes to her salad. They sensed something before it happened, the way people feel thunder before rain. Madison placed one hand lightly on my shoulder. "Eleanor," she said, loud enough for the table but not the whole room. "You have been so quiet. Are the potatoes acceptable?" I folded my hands in my lap. "Everything is fine, Madison." She smiled wider. "Fine is not much of a compliment after all your helpful little notes." Her bridesmaids had drifted behind her now, pretending to adjust place cards, pretending to look for someone, pretending they were not waiting. I saw Michael near the head table, speaking with his new father-in-law. His face turned toward us. He saw Madison standing over me. He saw my plate. He saw my hands folded tightly together. I waited for him to come. Madison bent lower, her voice soft enough that only I could hear the first part. "You have spent months acting like this family still belongs to you." Then she lifted her voice again, bright and playful. "Come on, Eleanor. Taste it properly." Her hand moved from my shoulder to the back of my chair, and in the confusion of people shifting and watching and pretending not to watch, my face was brought down toward the plate. It happened quickly, but my mind slowed every second. The white linen napkin on my lap, the gold rim of the china, the smell of butter and pepper, the sudden cold smear across my cheek, a sharp breath from someone at the table, then silence. Not complete silence. The band was still playing. Glasses still clinked somewhere near the bar. But around me, the air stopped moving. Madison leaned close, her lips near my ear, and whispered, "Taste it." I lifted my head. The mashed potatoes were cold against my skin. A little had fallen onto the front of my dress, just below my mother's pearl brooch. I reached for my napkin with a hand that did not shake. I wiped my cheek once, then my chin, then placed the napkin beside my plate as if I had simply finished dinner. Across the room, Michael had taken one step forward. Only one. Madison turned toward him first, her eyes bright with warning. He stopped. Then he said the sentence that ended something older than his marriage. "Mom, please do not make a scene." I looked at my son, my little boy, my only child, and understood that he was not confused. He was choosing. So I stood slowly, lifted my purse from the back of the chair, and walked away without giving Madison the tears she had dressed herself to see. The hallway outside the ballroom felt colder than the room I had left behind. I could still hear the music through the closed doors, cheerful and polished, as if the evening had simply swallowed what happened and kept dancing. I walked past the restrooms, past a table covered with gift envelopes, past a framed photograph of Michael and Madison laughing under live oaks. My reflection moved beside me in the dark window glass, a 70-year-old woman in a champagne dress with a stain near her heart and white smudges still clinging to one side of her hair. I did not recognize her at first. Then a hand touched my elbow, gentle and firm. "Eleanor." It was Helen Carter, my closest friend for more than 30 years, her silver hair pinned neatly back, her blue eyes wet but steady. She did not ask whether I was all right. Good friends know when a question is too small for the wound. She simply guided me into a small sitting room near the bridal suite, closed the door, and locked out the music. The room smelled faintly of roses and furniture polish. A cream sofa sat under a painting of the harbor. On the vanity, someone had left bobby pins, lipstick tissues, and a half-empty bottle of sparkling water. Helen took a towel from the private restroom, dampened it with warm water, and stood in front of me. "Let me," she said. I sat on the edge of the sofa while she cleaned my cheek, then my hair, then the front of my dress with careful little motions. Her hands shook more than mine did. "She meant to do that," Helen whispered. I saw her look around first. I closed my eyes. Not because I wanted to cry, but because I needed one quiet second to put the truth in its proper place. "Michael saw it too," I said. Helen stopped moving. In the silence, that was answer enough. "Hey." Soft knock came at the door. Helen opened it only a few inches. A young man in a black shirt stood outside, holding a camera bag against his chest. I recognized him from earlier, one of the videographers who had been filming the speeches. "Mrs. Bennett?" he asked. "My name is Lucas. I am sorry to bother you." His face was pale with the discomfort of someone raised to respect older women and now unsure where to place what he had witnessed. "I just thought you should know." One of our side cameras was rolling from the dessert table. It caught the whole thing. Helen looked at me. I looked at the damp towel in her hand, then at the pearl brooch Robert's mother had once worn to church every Sunday. "Do not delete it," I said. My voice sounded calm, even to me. Lucas nodded quickly. "I will keep the original file backed up." "Thank you," I said. He hesitated, then added, "For what it is worth, ma'am, it did not look like an accident." After he left, Helen sat beside me. "What are you going to do?" she asked. I opened my purse and touched the small wrapped gift I had brought for Madison, the pearl comb no Bennett bride would ever wear now. Then beneath it, my fingers found another envelope, one I had almost forgotten in the tenderness of the morning. The house gift. The letter from my bank confirming the first transfer I had planned to make after the wedding. $50,000 toward Michael and Madison's down payment. Robert would have called it generous. An hour earlier, I had called it love. I folded my hand over the envelope and felt something inside me settle into place. "Nothing tonight," I said. "Tonight, I let her enjoy what she thinks she has won." I returned to the ballroom because leaving would have given Madison exactly the story she wanted. Helen walked beside me, close enough that I could feel her shoulder near mine, but not touching, not fussing, not making me look rescued. I had cleaned my face, pinned my hair back with 2 plain clips from the vanity, and turned my brooch slightly so the stain on my dress looked less obvious in the candlelight. The music had grown louder. People were dancing now. The first slice of wedding cake had been served. Life, I have learned, keeps moving even when your heart is standing still in the hallway. Madison saw me come back. For one flicker of a second, her smile slipped. Then she lifted her chin, took Michael's hand, and pulled him toward the dance floor as if nothing unpleasant had ever happened. I sat at my table until the coffee came. I thanked the server. I complimented the cake when the cousin beside me asked what I thought of it. I even smiled when one of Madison's aunts said weddings were always emotional for mothers. Emotional. That was a soft word people used when they did not want to say cruel. Michael did not come to me for the rest of the evening. Once, near the bar, I saw him looking in my direction, his face pale and tired. Madison leaned close to him, said something, and his eyes dropped. I knew that posture. I had seen it when he was a boy and had broken a lamp, waiting to see whether the truth would cost him more than silence. Near 10 o'clock, guests began lining up outside with sparklers for the couple's exit. I did not join them. I stood near the back porch with Helen while Madison and Michael ran through the glowing tunnel of light toward a black town car. People cheered. Madison looked radiant. Michael looked relieved. My phone buzzed before the car reached the end of the driveway. The message was from Madison. I hope you learn not to embarrass me again. I read it once. Then I showed it to Helen. She pressed her lips together and looked away toward the magnolia trees. Save that, she said. Already done, I replied. I slept little that night. Back at my house, I hung the stained dress on the closet door instead of putting it in the hamper. I wanted to see it in the morning. Not as shame, as evidence. I placed Madison's unopened pearl comb on my dresser and set the bank envelope beside it. $50,000. Not a loan. Not a favor. A gift I had planned to give my son because I still believed helping him build a home meant I would always have a place in his life. At 7:15 the next morning, Michael called. His voice was low, careful, adult in the way children sound when they are about to ask a parent to carry something they should carry themselves. Mom, about last night, he said. I waited. Madison is upset. She feels like you made things awkward by leaving the table. I looked at the dress hanging from the closet door. Is that what she feels? We have brunch at 10, he continued. It would help if you came and just smooth things over. Maybe say you misunderstood. The house was very quiet. Outside, a neighbor's lawn mower started 2 houses down, ordinary and steady. I held the phone closer. Michael, did you misunderstand what you saw? He did not answer. That silence was the last gift he gave me before I stopped protecting him from himself. I will be at brunch, I said, and I will be very clear. At 9:45, I parked across the street from the Magnolia house and sat in my car with both hands resting on the steering wheel. The morning was bright, almost disrespectfully bright, with sunlight spilling across the white porch and the leftover flower arrangements still tied to the railings. From the outside, the venue looked innocent again. A place for pictures. A place for laughter. A place where no one would believe a woman could lose her place in her own family between the salad course and the cake. I wore a navy suit, low heels, and the same pearl brooch, cleaned carefully with a soft cloth before I pinned it near my collar. I did not wear the stained dress. I did not need to. I had brought it in a garment bag and laid it across the back seat like a quiet witness. In my purse were 3 things. Madison's text message printed on paper, the bank envelope confirming the $50,000 transfer that had not yet been completed, and the small velvet box with the pearl comb. Helen met me at the entrance. She wore gray and looked calm in a way I knew had taken effort. Lucas is here, she said quietly. He has the file. I nodded. Good. The brunch was set in a smaller room overlooking the garden, with round tables, coffee urns, fruit trays, biscuits, and silver chafing dishes filled with eggs and bacon. People looked tired from celebrating, softer around the eyes, still dressed nicely but less polished than the night before. Madison stood near the windows in a white day dress, accepting hugs like a delicate person recovering from an injury. Michael stood beside her, one hand in his pocket, the other wrapped around a coffee cup he had not touched. When I entered, conversation thinned. Not stopped, just thinned, like fabric worn too long. Madison saw me and gave a little sigh, making sure the women beside her could hear it. Eleanor, she said, I am glad you came. I was hoping we could all move forward with grace. Grace. I looked at the fruit tray, at the strawberries cut into perfect halves, at the little tongs placed neatly on white linen. That sounds reasonable, I said. Michael's shoulders lowered with relief. Poor boy. Even then, he thought my calmness meant surrender. We sat. Coffee was poured. Madison waited until enough people had gathered close, then placed her napkin on the table and turned to me with a soft, wounded expression. I just want to say, she began, that yesterday was emotional for everyone. I tried to include you, Eleanor. I really did. But when you left the table like that, it made people uncomfortable. A few heads tilted toward me. I could feel them wanting me to apologize so breakfast could taste normal again. Michael looked at me, silently begging me to make his life easier. I reached into my purse and placed the printed text message on the table. Madison's eyes dropped to it. Her face changed by one shade. Before I apologize for making anyone uncomfortable, I said, I think everyone should understand what I was asked to learn. No one moved. Helen stepped to the side door and opened it. Lucas came in carrying a laptop. He did not look at Madison. He set the laptop on a small service table near the wall, connected it to the room's display screen, and pressed play. There was no dramatic music, no speech, just the clean, ordinary truth from the dessert table camera. The room watched Madison approach me from behind, smiling. They watched her hand settle on my shoulder. They watched my body go still. They watched her lean down afterward and whisper into my ear, while several bridesmaids stood close enough to know exactly what had happened. Then the video ended, and the room became so quiet I could hear the coffee urn click as it warmed itself. Madison opened her mouth, but nothing useful came out. Michael stared at the screen as if seeing his own reflection for the first time. I placed the bank envelope beside the text message. This was going to be my wedding gift, I said. A down payment toward your first home together. $50,000 from the account Robert and I built over 40 years. Michael looked at me then, truly looked. Mom, he said. I raised one hand, not sharply, just enough to stop him from putting his fear into my lap. No, Michael. Yesterday you watched. This morning, everyone else did too. The silence after the video did not feel empty. It felt full of everything people had chosen not to say. Madison sat very still, one hand resting near her coffee cup, her new wedding ring catching the morning light as if nothing shameful had happened beneath it. Her mother stared at the floor. One of the bridesmaids wiped at the corner of her eye, though I could not tell whether it was guilt or embarrassment. Michael kept looking from the screen to me, then to the envelope on the table. $50,000 had a way of making people understand consequences faster than pain ever did. Madison finally found her voice. That looks worse than it was, she said. Her tone was soft, almost practiced, but the room had already changed. No one rushed to comfort her. No one laughed. No one called me emotional. I picked up the envelope and held it between two fingers. I agree, I said. It looked exactly like what it was. Michael stood halfway, then sat back down when I looked at him. He had Robert's eyes, but not Robert's courage. That was a hard thing for a mother to learn in public. Mom, he said, and his voice cracked just enough to remind me of the boy who used to call from college when he was sick. Can we talk about this privately? I looked at him for a long moment. You made your choice publicly. His face folded inward. Madison reached for his hand, but he did not take it. That was not victory. It was only the first honest movement I had seen from him in 2 days. I placed the pearl comb on the table next, still inside its small velvet box. This belonged to your grandmother, I told him. I brought it yesterday because I believed Madison was joining our family. I was wrong. A family does not require a woman to disappear in order to keep the peace. Madison's cheeks flushed. You are punishing us over one misunderstanding. Helen made a small sound beside the wall, but I did not need her to defend me. I had spent too many years letting other people translate my hurt into something polite. No, I said. I am accepting what you showed me. Then I tore the bank letter once, slowly, carefully, and placed the two halves beside my untouched coffee. The transfer had not been completed. The money was still mine. The choice was still mine. That gift will not be going toward a house for the two of you, I said. Tomorrow, I will move it into the Robert Bennett Scholarship Fund at the community college. He believed in helping young people build futures. I think that is a better use for it. Michael lowered his head. Madison stared at me as if I had changed languages in the middle of breakfast. I stood, smoothing the front of my navy jacket. My knees ached, and my heart hurt, but my voice was steady. A wedding shows people what a family is becoming. Yesterday showed me exactly that. Michael whispered, Mom, please. I turned toward him. For the first time in my life, I did not soften because he sounded wounded. You watched, I said. 2 words. They were enough. I picked up my purse, left the pearl comb on the table, and walked out through the garden doors into the bright Charleston morning. Behind me, no one clapped, no one cheered, no one followed. That was fine. I was not leaving to be dramatic. I was leaving because I had finally understood that love without respect is only another room where you learn to sit quietly. Outside, the magnolia trees were still blooming. My car waited across the street with the stained dress folded in the back seat, but I no longer felt ashamed of it. By the time I reached the sidewalk, the air felt lighter. Not happy, not healed, just honest. And after years of being useful, quiet, and grateful for crumbs of attention, honest felt like freedom.